right, welcome everyone to the River's Edge. Today I am interviewing Dave Aldrich, who is the former CEO of Skyworks Solutions, and I know him because I used to be a supplier to his company. And he is a very passionate person, and today's video is about finding your passion. And I want to hear his story on, has he always followed his passion? What point did he start in life, and how did he get there? So thank you, Dave, for coming.
Hi, thanks for having me. Hi, Kelly.
Hi, nice to see you. Your passion is so important, and in the corporate world where I come from, there's so many people that are not passionate about what they do, but you are corporate world, you have been, and you are very passionate about what you do. And I'm curious how that worked with you managing a company as well, with managing people that weren't as passionate about their jobs. But let's go back and get started with you. Did your parents support you in that and following your dream, and how did you ever get started in that?
So thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me on. So I would say no to that question. So my parents got divorced when I was about 13, and there were 6 kids, and my mother raised us all alone. So she was, fighting the good fight to put food on the table and raise this wild bunch of kids. We were all type A, running around and close in age. There were about 10 years between all of us. So we were kind of bunched up apart. So no, it wasn't that as much. A little bit of survival of the fittest. But so I came to technology late. I started out just trying to find my way. In fact, when I got into college, it was a local state university, and I pursued political science, thinking that maybe I'd be a lawyer. People told me lawyers made money and that it was a good job. I got into that, didn't love it. I graduated in the early 80s and started to see, if you know anything about that time, it was really quite a bad recession and there were no jobs. So the only job interview I got was to be a branch manager of a local bank. And I thought that sounded awful. So I actually went to work, and I worked for General Dynamics Electric Boat as a welder for a couple of years. And I worked on a fishing boat for a while.
Oh, wow.
Altogether about a couple of years. And that was good physical activity, and there was some good aspects to it, but I didn't love it. It just wasn't for me. So I went back to school. Back then, everybody said, go get an MBA. An MBA is the path. And so I did that. I went back to school, got an MBA, and really, honestly, what got me into tech was just my first job, which introduced me to some people. In fact, the prior chairman of the board of Skyworks, Dave McLaughlin, hired me when I was 23 years old to go out and look at potential cable TV franchises in various remote locations. So, and he and I are friends to this day. He's in his mid 80s.
Oh, wow.
So I was very fortunate to kind of go from one job to another, and it landed me in technology just as a lark, just out of luck. And I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the people side of it, and I thought I was pretty good at it. Fortunately, there are people who believed in me early in my career and who kind of guided me, and it went from there, but it wasn't preordained in any way, shape, or form.
Right. You didn't have a dream like one day.
So I wanted to make enough money to pay my rent.
Right. So you got the job. How'd you get the job in the high tech? You just applied for a job?
Yeah. So after I got my MBA, I went to work for a company called Space Communications in Washington, D.C., and they were launching tracking data satellites. The company went bankrupt, by the way, after about 4 years, but I did pretty well there and learned a lot about just in those days, military electronics and technology, which of course in our business, Skyworks is a mobile communications company, semiconductor company. Really the early days, the genesis of all of that was mostly military electronics and surveillance and radars and that kind of thing. So most of us in tech who are my age came up at some point in time and did a stint in high-tech military. So that led to a job at MACOM. You probably heard of MACOM.
And
yeah.
the one right there in Mass?
In Massachusetts, yep. And so I was there for only a few years. And then some friends of mine who I really loved working with MACOM went to Alpha Industries, quit, and went to Alpha and convinced me to come on as one of their executive team members. The company was very small, very, very small. Wasn't making.
So you were like, 30 years oldish?
Yeah, just about. Yeah, maybe 28, 29. And that got me into semiconductors. And then, from there we did, Alpha Industries acquired Connexent, long, boring story, but we acquired Connexent's wireless business, did a leveraged technology deal, borrowed a bunch of money, and went public as Skyworks in 2002. And I remained as the CEO of Skyworks for 20 years.
Wait, so you're president of Alpha for how long before you?
I was president and then CEO I joined in 95, and we did the deal with Connexon in 2001. I started as CFO, became president, and then ultimately became CEO.
Wow, that's a big deal. So when you went to Alpha, how many employees were there?
About 500.
Oh, there was already that many. Oh, I thought you said like a small company that you were.
Well, it was smallish. Yeah, it was smallish
compared to
for a public tech company. I mean, Skyworks has over 10,000 people, so it was smallish.
Yeah, and then stay there and then go become CEO of, because you went directly into CEO, right? Right, of Skyworks.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So you found your passion, getting back to the passion story. So you
right.
found your passion in it, right? You enjoyed it so much. You were.
I loved it. I still love it. So I'm the chairman of the board now. I'm no longer CEO, and I'm on other public company boards that are in different aspects of technology. I loved technology, not for technology's sake, but I found that the fast-paced environment and the competitiveness of it, and how that kind of, sometimes it's the foxhole mentality, using that expression, but how it bonded people and the teams together. And we just really had, with a few exceptions, we had a terrific time building companies, fighting with our competitors, servicing customers, making mistakes, learning from those mistakes, and growing the business. And it was and is a blast.
That's a tough gig though, because your customers, the cell phone makers of the world, the RF, I mean, they make a ton of money. Then you knock it down to the next level, and then it's like money is so tight, like you're competing on price big time.
Yeah. So Apple's our largest customer, by the way, and they've been a terrific tough customer, but a great customer. So no, you're right. You're right about that. And I mentioned earlier that they said 500 is not that small. That's a tiny semiconductor company. Semiconductor is all about scale, as you know. And in order to compete, you need to be leverage that scale, know what you're good at, not get distracted, surround yourself with great people, empower them to become even better, and go focus on what you're best at. And along the way, you make great friends. You learn to trust one another, and it was the people side of it, and really the hunt, that I was passionate about and remain passionate about.
Right, nice. And how do you? Because a lot of people haven't found that passion. And what if they don't find it in their job? Maybe bits and pieces of their job they can get and they can find passionate, or how do you empower them, your employees?
Well, that's a great question, because what I found when we were growing the business from 500 to many thousands, there are certain situations that bond management teams and leadership teams, and empowering people to find their strength and their inner strength, and to join the journey in a very productive way. And it doesn't work all the time. And down cycles really bring out the best and worst in people sometimes. So what we did we were early to this strategy and this philosophy, was we really delayered the companies we created and the companies we acquired. So we took levels of management down from maybe a dozen to half of that. We put everyone in cubicles. We sort of eliminated the administration firewall, the admins and so on that exist between people who are interacting with customers or in the manufacturing or in the field. We eliminated as much of that as we possibly could. And we tried to show the human side of us rather than layers of management, titles, and bureaucracy. And that served us extremely well. Some people voted with their feet. They said, this is really fast paced. It's hard work. It's a lot of hours. I don't want to do it. But Kelly, I think in this day and age, there are no jobs worth doing in industries where you can make a solid living that are easy. They just don't exist. There's no easy. I don't care if you're a school teacher or a tech CEO. There are no easy ways to make a living and find your passion, as you said.
Yeah, so I think it's important to find it in what you are doing. What do you like about it? Like you just said, you love the people and you love the challenge, and you're not focused on the technology part of it, which you may not be in love with. It's not that exciting, but the people part, so you focused on that.
Here, so and virtually everybody I've managed along the way has been an engineer or very engineering proficient, and that was never me. So I had to figure out a way to to find my strengths and my passions, and then build infrastructure and people around me that complemented that. And I never pretended to be a technical expert, and I'm not. But that didn't hold me back, because the technical experts were there for the company, and we bonded in ways where they didn't have that expectation of me, and I relied entirely on them. And almost without exception, they never let us down.
Yeah, and you don't want someone all the same skill set, right? You want to complement, just like you said, complement each other.
That's right. That's right. One of the things that's made us successful is we haven't been technology for technology's sake. We haven't invested because it's cool. We've invested because we found a niche. We felt we could exploit it. Sounds like a bad way to describe it. But we found a niche where we could become number one or number two, and work with our customers, listen very closely to them, bond with them, and create a great company. So many tech companies in particular, they operate looking for the next best mousetrap, which is great, but it doesn't always lead to success. There's more to.
Oh, so sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's okay. There's more to be successful than having a better product. Sometimes the best product doesn't always win. Service and loyalty and relationships win.
Oh, so that was your number one over the technology piece? You said
Yes.
Relationship with your supplier or your customers.
I like to think so.
I'll have to go quiz the people down the street at at Apple. How was Dave Aldrich for you guys?
Well, I hope they say wonderful things. We say wonderful things about them, and we mean it.
Well, that's good. That's good. I like hearing that, because it's not always about the technology piece, and it's a package that you need to come forward with, and you're at the relationship piece.
Yeah, it's about people. I mean, it sounds like a cliche, but you cannot create a company without having a great deal of commonality and bond with people. You can't satisfy your customers without having a relationship with them that's through the thick and thin. One of the things that I think has helped us a lot is we made big mistakes in our run and continue to, but I like to think we acknowledge those mistakes, we work through them, and almost without exceptions, it makes the relationships we have with our customers stronger, and it makes the team dynamic better. Nothing like working through a problem to bring people together.
Yeah, and your stock price going, that didn't hurt either.
Yeah, that doesn't hurt. That's the outcome. That's the back door. That's the net outcome.
That's really nice to do that. Did you have time during your job as CEO to pursue side passions?
Well, I did, but it was hard, because just about the time I was, I started relatively early in these, present CEO type roles, and that's a 24/7 gig, no matter how you slice it. You need to be on the phone with a customer in Korea, and if it's 3 o'clock in the morning, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. You take that call. Right. And I had 3 wonderful children, and I had them in a couple of years apart, and I did so when I was really in the thick of hours and traveling 50% of the time, and so that was hard. And I think my kids took it on the chin a little bit. Did the best I could, but when the kids were young, I really didn't pursue much. A lot of my buddies were golfing or going on trips and this kind of thing. And I didn't do that because I was gone so much of the time. So I waited until they were a little older, and now I'm letting loose. So
did you instill in them the go follow your heart, follow your passion?
Absolutely.
Oh, that's nice.
Absolutely. My youngest daughter is a writer with Crown Publishing, or an editor, marketing and editor. My middle daughter is a baker and just had her first child. And my oldest son is sort of an environmentalist and operates and runs an orchard. So none of my kids went after tech.
Wow. Are they all there right by you?
What's that?
Do they live by you?
They live pretty close, within a couple of hours. Yeah, they're all East Coast. And my daughter is in New York City. But so they all followed a different passion, and none of them were interested in tech, nor did I ever push them.
Right. Yeah. They may, if they're not interested, they're not interested.
They're not interested. And maybe they saw what I went through when they were little kids. I don't know, but
that would be, yeah. If you're not into being on the road all the time, that would make you not want to pursue that.
Exactly.
So were you excited when you left as CEO to pursue your other passions then?
I was and am still excited. That was about 3 or 4 years ago when I stepped down as CEO. I still stay, I'm still on the board. But the fellow, Liam Griffin, who now is the CEO, I think the world of Liam. I hired him to run sales, oh geez, right about the time of Connexit, so what, 19 years ago.
Oh,
So we worked
wow.
together
I
and
didn't
we did
realize.
everything. We traveled together, we hung out together. He ran pretty much every functional group in the company. And it was a natural fit for the company to
Good.
groom him as a successor to me. And that doesn't happen that often successfully. So we've had no senior leadership turnover, CEO turnover in the history of the company. And that goes from, Alpha acquisition in 2001 to now. So in 20 years, it's all been sort of seamless, the same people.
That's still tough though, when you lose someone that you really like and respect
Yeah.
as the CEO, even though Liam's been there forever. It's still tough to lose someone like yourself that people liked.
No, I don't think so, Kelly. I think it was really
Are you
seamless.
sure?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it was harder on me than it was on them. We worked on this transition a very long time, and we had complementary skills. There are things that he's better at than I am, and he was the right person in my mind. This isn't a pitch for Skyworks, but maybe it is. But he was the right person to go to the next level.
I didn't mean it regarding Liam. I just meant in general,
So
when someone you really like leaves, it's hard.
well, I think that's true. I think that's true.
Yeah.
But if you do the job well, there shouldn't be disruption in the company. Sometimes there is, and that's usually companies that are struggling. The culture perhaps isn't that strongly formed. Board takes a reaction, the CEO leaves, and then they look around and say, okay, now let's bring somebody in from the outside, and half the time it works, the other half the time it doesn't work. So we were very fortunate to sort of keep it in the
Yeah.
family. I think that's been good for us.
That is really good. That's nice. And now you're following other passions like the farming.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit? I think that's super
Sure.
fun.
So about the time I stepped down as CEO, we sold our family home and moved into a farm. We have about 140 acres up in southern New Hampshire.
Oh, you live by that farm?
Yeah, we did. It was a horse farm. It was a horse boarding operation with a big old barn. We built a house, and we built upon that horse board. It had been for a century. It was a horse boarding operation, and we've since we have added some endangered goats, San Clemente Island goats. Being a West Coast person, they're critically endangered species of goats that we had shipped from California. We've been breeding those. We've got some heritage hogs, big 350-pound pigs, alpacas, chickens.
Oh yeah, you should have chickens in your backyard. Did you put them on the farm now?
Yep, we have chickens in our farm. Yeah,
the same one you had before? No. Oh, they're not still alive.
Unfortunately. So that's been a lot of fun and a real learning experience. I've learned that nobody is in farming for the money. You either love it,
right,
leave it. And this is a hobby for me. So I've got wonderful people who work with me there who I really love and respect, and they do most of the heavy lifting, and I'm able to spend the time there doing things that I enjoy. Still getting dirty, but it's still, right. But I don't have the responsibility. We don't pretend to try to make money on that farm. It's more of a big petting zoo.
Right. I'm like, how would you make money? I mean, you put out the money and bought the farm and bring over the animals, and you got to pay someone to take care of them. You
do. Well, the way you'd make money, the way they made money prior to that was boarding operations. So people pay to board their horses. We had maybe 18 or 20 of them. Alpacas, you could sell their fur. Pigs you could slaughter. This is a no-kill farm. So horses come and they stay till they die of old age. The pigs do as well, and so we don't. Other than taking eggs and using the fur from the alpacas to create yarn, there's nothing productive on that farm.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you get fresh eggs all the time. That's nice.
Yeah, sure.
Although you had that before.
Yeah, you could save yourself a lot of money by walking down to the store and buying a dozen. I'll tell you that.
Rather than buying
chickens. You don't mind spending $10 an egg, then you're all set.
Oh, okay. Got it. That's funny. And then you do something with the homeless houses that you.
Yeah, so that's right. About a year ago, in fact, some Skyworks people are involved. Our head of human resources, our vice president of human resources.
Oh, I don't know if I know.
Laura Gasparini. Does that name mean anything to you?
I don't know her.
yeah, so she worked out of the East Coast. You probably never met her. I don't think she
Oh,
came to
okay.
Flyer days, but she's awesome. And she and another woman, Ronnie Hoey, who I worked with back in Macon days. So I've known her for 30 years. Uh, we started a charity called Project Compass, Compass with a K. And we acquired our first shelter in January. And we've renovated it, and now we're taking on residents. It's a 18 to 24-year-old transitional. It's not an overnight shelter. It's a transitional shelter where we will have people come and live. This first shelter is about 12, 14 bedrooms. It's pretty big, as
Oh,
these things
wow.
are at home. And we'll have people who could, caseworkers and people who can impart life skills and resume writing and transportation and emotional skills to the extent that there are issues. There are very few homeless people who haven't experienced a great deal of trauma somewhere in their lives. So we're just starting that endeavor. We had our first family out of Cameroon about 6 weeks ago. And now we're inviting through a intake process, another 8 or 10 or 12 people. And then we're going to look at expanding with other homes. This is all female for the first home, and
Okay.
we're now looking at others in the area as well. That's a labor of love, a lot of work, a lot of sadness,
Yeah.
but I think it will be great. I'm learning a lot.
Yeah. Well, I've done a lot of work in personal development over the past
Yeah.
12 years. So if you need anyone for them to talk to, I would be happy to volunteer
Yeah,
my
you'd be
time.
great. You'd be great. And they will, these are, everybody, these are all terrific people. I mean, there's no, it's just, there aren't bad people. There are sometimes bad actions. And if you can divorce the two and figure out a way to get people back to their center and find that passion, as you say.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're looking for those kinds of folks who show some aptitude and some willingness to sort of put the trauma behind them, and they'll stay there from between 6 and 24 months is the duration. So it's a little different, a little longer term.
Oh, okay. Wow. I love that. I love that. So they're not just on the street, they're actually getting
Yeah,
help and
yeah,
free of charge to them.
yeah, yeah.
And are
Yeah,
these in New Hampshire?
this is actually in Chelmsford, Mass.
Okay.
So this is in Massachusetts. Yeah,
Both of them.
yeah, exactly.
Oh, nice. I love that.
Yeah,
It's
but
a
we do
very,
it's new. It's hard. It's brand new to us. I've never done this before.
yeah, it's so different from
It is.
Skyworks, going from tech to this, you're spreading your wings.
Yeah, yeah. But there's a need. There is probably not what you want to talk about, but there are shelters, and they're overnight shelters. And they tend to house people there is nowhere for people with mental health issues or really
Right.
serious emotional issues or drug and alcohol problems. There are very few options for them. So these shelters are one option. We live in New England, so it's cold, right? It's freezing cold half the year. And so those particular facilities do great work, but they're not where that 18-year-old kid who maybe English is a second language, they may be undocumented, they may be kicked out by their parents or left a situation, a home that was untenable, and they're really not. It doesn't do them any good to go into these overnight shelters. That's not the place for them. They need a little bit more nurturing, more time, and that's what we're hoping. And that's a gap. These homes just don't exist, at least not on the East Coast.
Right. I love that. I love it. I also love that you weren't raised to follow your passion. I mean, you learned to do this on your own, but it wasn't nothing was handed to you. In other words, I didn't mean that sounded like that, but you weren't raised and to always follow your passion. You learned how to do that on your own. And a lot of people, when they're living in survival mode,
Yep.
emotionally or mentally, it's just get through the day. What am I following my dreams? That's not even an option. What would be your advice to someone who's in that mode and they're 18 to 22 or any age really? I mean, and you're never too young to follow your passion.
Yeah. Well, it's really hard to follow your passion when you don't have money for rent or gas to put in your car, or you don't
Exactly.
have a car. So it's unrealistic to say, well, find the job you love and you'll never work a day in your life. Well, that's true. That's very true, and it's a wonderful sentiment. But many young people don't have the resources or the infrastructure or the family net to help them. So I think if you do have those resources and you're fortunate enough, I did not, but if you do, then really you need to look around and not pursue money, pursue some action that makes you happy, whether it's working with others or animals, because so many people, go through life, they get that job, they get a decent paycheck, maybe they have children, responsibilities, a mortgage, and they're stuck. And it just is a life of labor rather than a life of love. So I think if you have resources, you owe it to yourself and the people providing those resources to just keep looking. And don't be afraid to fail. Try 5 different things, 6 different things. It's okay. It's all right. If you're 30 years old, it's still okay. 40 years old, it's still okay. Don't settle. If you don't have the resources, it's a little bit tougher. And so you just have to really dig deep. Try to find somebody, any successful person, and I'm sure you can attest to this, somebody somewhere along the line took a chance on it and saw something in them. So you have to try to find those individuals with whom you can create a connection, maybe older folks who can help you on your way and dig your way out of a hole and into something that provides some meaning. And then you can, embark on a path that leads you hopefully to an activity that you love, surrounded by people you love,
Or
at least you enjoy.
yeah, and if someone's in a job where they're making so much money, they can't afford to leave it because of
Yeah.
their bills, right? So they're stuck in a sense, but they can find passion outside of work, or find what, like you did, find what you love in the job that they have.
Or try something different. Take a chance.
If they need the certain amount of money, right?
That's true. And that's the problem, so you have to really be willing. I know people who have been very successfully stepped off of that treadmill and said, I'm going to do something different, and have been very successful with less money, and then built their life back up again. Relationships are the same way, right? People find themselves in a relationship, it's unfulfilling. You get a mortgage, you get maybe kids in the mix, and all of a sudden 25 years have gone by and you sit back and look back upon it. So at some point in time, you gotta break this cycle and find your passion.
That's true. That's true. Because even though you might be making a lot of money at a job, and you're not happy at it, is it really worth it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not, I would argue.
There's no price for happiness. Well, thanks, Dave. I thoroughly enjoyed talking to you. I know you got a meeting to go to soon, but it was fun talking to you and catching up.
Yeah, thanks. It's been a long time, and good luck with your channel. And
Thanks.
Face to face when all this craziness is over.
I know. If I get back east, I'll certainly call you.
Okay. Take care.
Thanks. Bye, Dave.
Bye.